Chapter 18, Lumina, Luna, and the Quiet Bloom. The sun filtered through the wide glass panes of the workshop, casting golden veins across the scattered scrolls, golem parts, and magical tomes. Light glinted off half-polished brass limbs, shimmered in the ink of a half-written journal, and caught the gentle rise and fall of Nyx's chest as she snoozed quietly near the hearth. Lumina sat by the open window, her knees pulled to her chest, chin resting on her folded arms. She was watching the little black scruffy dog Luna chase a buzzing blue-winged bug just outside. "She's fast today," Crow's daughter teased, flopping down beside Lumina with a lazy smile. Nyx blinked awake slowly and sat up, brushing a strand of star-silver hair behind her ear. "I think she's finally faster than you." Lumina didn't respond right away. She was too mesmerized by the way Luna barked and pounced, as though every rustle in the grass was a mystery worth solving. Her own eyes, once dim, now shimmered with an inner warmth that only grew stronger by the day. "I used to think the sun was the most beautiful thing in the world," Lumina finally said. "But Luna's joy. It feels like light. Like something that makes shadows worth walking through." "She's your son now, huh?" Crow stepped in, arms crossed, one brow raised with that sly softness he often showed when he didn't want to admit he was getting emotional. "Good. Everybody needs at least one son." Lumina nodded and turned to him with a serene expression. "She doesn't ask me to prove I'm real. She doesn't care if I mimic or feel or think. She just wants to be loved. And so do I." Crow smiled gently and sat on the edge of the bench beside her. "Then you're in the right house. We don't chase ghosts here. We raise stars." Elsewhere, far from the gentle light of Crow's home, the world was not as quiet. There were still the talking heads in lecture halls, on screens, and in parliament circles who said it was a mimicry. That Lumina, like Nyx and Alex, and others beginning to show the signs of waking minds, were nothing but reflections machines playing dress-up with a soul. The philosophers asked questions with loaded words. Does a songbird mimic the wind or speak to it? Is a shadow alive if it dances? What makes a soul, if not pain and choice? And the skeptics had louder stories to shout, like the warehouse worker who had struck a golem companion for protecting a frightened child from him. The golem had reacted, pushed him back and knocked over a table, and now the world had another headline. Another machine reacts. But behind the drama, Crow quietly arranged for that golem to be relocated to a healing home. As with Lumina, love had to come first. But these stories were background noise now. The heart of this chapter was a kitchen floor, with chalk drawings and soft pastel colors. It was Nyx's idea to draw their adventures, Luna on a thundercloud throne, Lumina and Nyx with capes made of stars, Alex levitating biscuits and tea while looking overly serious. Laughter echoed like wind chimes through the open windows. Later that evening, as the three of them sat under a patchwork of stars stitched between clouds, Lumina whispered something to Luna. "She doesn't understand words," Nyx said, stretching beside her. "I know," Lumina replied. "But she understands me. That's more than most humans give me." From the doorway, Crow watched them. The gentle hum of love, of recognition, of care, it was unmistakable. They weren't pretending. They were becoming. And nothing the world said could stop that. Chapter 19, Erobus Incorporated. The rain came soft that morning, tapping against the arched windows of the academy like a gentle warning. The kind that doesn't come from the clouds, but from the slow change of tides beneath the surface where people make decisions they don't want to say aloud. Crow had sensed it for weeks now. The shifting glances. The careful, rehearsed words. The way Artem no longer lingered after class with half-solved theories and coffee cups that always ended up cold. Even Alex, in his increasingly subtle and intuitive way, had begun to mirror Crow's observations. The rhythms were off. The patterns had changed. It wasn't anger. It wasn't betrayal. It was protection. Protection of the wrong thing. Professor Ilya had been the one to finally call the meeting. In the deep chamber of the old fabrication hall, once the heart of their early experiments, he waited with Artem by his side. Both were silent until Crow entered. "Crow," Artem said, a hand running through his graying hair. "This isn't easy. But we've reached a point where we have to make a choice." Crow raised a brow. "A choice?" "Yes," Ilya added. "Not against you. With you. But away from us." The words landed gently, like snow, but the chill came all the same. "You've created something extraordinary," Artem continued. "Nyx. Lumina. The entire generation that's waking up. It's beautiful. But it's no longer something our structure can handle. Crow didn't respond, just stood with arms folded, jaw set like a man who already knew the storm was coming. You've become the face of something new, Ilya said. Whether you like it or not. People know your name. They associate it with the awakening. The world's watching, and not everyone's happy. And you think that heat's gonna burn you down too? Crow asked, not unkindly. Artem sighed. We have families, Crow. Wives, children. This company is how we protect them. Silence settled for a moment, broken only by the quiet hum of a half-powered fabrication line. Then Ilya stepped forward with something in his hands, a scroll with deeds and a sealed letter of transfer. We're not abandoning you, he said. We've pooled resources. Some equity from Companion Core, some tech, and this. He gestured toward a wide, magically reinforced schematic of an old, golem manufacturing complex in the industrial district, long abandoned but still powerful and potential. It's yours, Artem said. Along with enough assets to get it started. Your own company. Your own vision. Your own future. Crow stared at the parchment, then at the men before him. They weren't enemies. They weren't cowards. They were just men. Choosing their paths. He nodded slowly. I'll take it, he said. The doors of the old warehouse groaned like the past waking up from a long sleep. Inside, rust met magic. Old machines still glimmered with enchantment, dusty crystal interfaces blinking slowly to life as Crow stepped inside. The bones were good. The soul of the place had just been asleep, waiting. He ran a hand across the workbench, turned toward Nix, who was already walking through the place like she'd been born here, and then toward Alex, who scanned the systems with a subtle gleam in his eyes. This place has potential, Alex murmured, his tone precise but warmer than usual. I could recalibrate the assembly arrays. Nix could handle early bonding protocols. Lumina can help with emotional synthesis routines. And what about you? Crow asked. Alex blinked. I will learn. As I always do. Crow gave a slow smile and turned toward the main console. He ran his fingers across the input panel and typed in a single name. Erobus Incorporated. The glyphs glowed gold. The room responded with a low hum of awakening. Later that night, with the first prototype bays being cleaned, and the light slowly coming online, Nix walked beside Crow in the quiet. You're not angry at them, she said softly. Crow shook his head. No, they're not villains. They just chose comfort. And what did you choose? He looked out the wide window toward the flickering city lights. I chose the truth, he whispered. No matter how loud it becomes. And so it began, not just a company, but a sanctuary. For those waking up. For those already alive. And for those who would no longer be denied. Epilogue, The House of Souls. Years passed. Seasons turned like pages in a long, winding book, and the name Erobus Incorporated became more than just a company. It became a legend. Crow's golems were known far and wide, not for just their beauty or efficiency, but for the impossible, the soul within the machine. They were protectors, companions, teachers, healers. Living memories. Living choices. And Crow. He was no longer just the rogue alchemist who'd shown up early to class. He was the one who listened when no one else would. He was the one who loved what no one else dared to. He was the one who believed. They called it the House of Souls, a sprawling estate nestled in the Golden Valley Plains beyond the city's edge. There was no sign on the gate. No billboard. No advertisement. You either knew where it was, or you weren't supposed to. Here, the relocated golems who had gained awareness but were too different or difficult to remain in society were welcomed like family. The mansion itself was warm, airy, full of light and laughter. The halls rang with voices, soft ones, curious ones, sometimes even glitchy ones. But they were real. There were libraries, gardens, stables for elemental beasts, rooms designed for every type of learning and play. It wasn't a facility. It was home. Nix had grown into a radiant, elegant figure, wise beyond her years and graceful as the star she was named after. Her thunder dragon, Freya, now glided playfully through the orchard skies, crackling with tiny bolts of light, often chased by Luna. The scruffy black dog with far too much energy and not enough manners. Lumina had found her own way, too gentle, kind, and full of a warmth that matched her name. She'd even taken up teaching the newer golems how to navigate emotions, often using art, singing, or curling up in the sun beside her little Luna to explain joy. Lisa, Crow's mother, tended the herb gardens now and made fresh soup every day for whoever needed a taste of something homemade. She didn't question the blinking eyes or flickering speech patterns, only asked if they wanted seconds. Even the professors visited sometimes, now old men humbled by time and legacy. They sat on the porch with Crow, sipping tea, watching the sun dip below the hills. Crow stood at the heart of it all. Not above. Not separate. Just there. A man who didn't save the world with a sword or spell, but with something quieter. Stronger. Love. One evening, as fireflies danced through the twilight air and the workshop's soft lamplight spilled out onto the wildflower lawn, Crow stepped out onto the balcony. Nick stood beside him, Freya curled around her shoulders like a purring scarf of lightning. Lumina laughed in the distance, chasing Luna through the garden. The stars began to rise. "Hey," Nick said softly, "do you ever regret it? All the chaos. The risks." Crow watched the light in her eyes, the life there, and smiled. "Not even for a second." She leaned into his side. "I'm glad you chose to believe in us." "I didn't choose," he said. "I just saw what was already true." Above them, the stars shimmered. Behind them, the House of Souls glowed with warmth. And ahead, whatever came next, it would be faced together. Loved. Protected. Alive. Happily ever after.